A very important understanding for programming Java is understanding the difference between primitives and objects. Primitives are the most basic data type. They just contain a value, and there are 8 different kinds of primitives. An example of a primitive is an integer with a value of 5. A primitive is not composed of other data types and does not contain methods. Objects, on the other hand, are composed of other data types and do contain methods. Or at least, they could. An object is an instance of a class. And a class is a blueprint that's pretty much a collection of properties and methods. You can see an example of an object here. This is the object person. It's a blueprint. Person has a name and person can greet. Greet is the method. Name is the property of person. So, objects are more complicated than primitives. As you can imagine, they take up more space, and that's why they're stored completely differently in the Java memory. And this has certain consequences. For example, primitives are immutable. This doesn't mean that you can't change them though, but it does mean that a new one gets created when you override its value. It doesn't change it on that piece of memory, but it creates a new value on a new piece of the Java memory. This is not the case for objects, but objects can be immutable. In order to achieve that, you need to stick to very certain coding patterns. Let me show you in IntelliJ what I mean when I say immutability. So here is our person. And if I'm going to create a new class with a main method in it, and I'm going to call this class just app for now. And in here, I'm going to create a main method. And in my main method, I'm going to create a person object. And I'm going to create another value holding this very same object. So I'm going to say p equals person. And now when I say person.name equals, and I'm going to say Maaike, the actual object has changed. And I can prove this by showing you the value of p.name. Because as you can see on line 6, I assigned to p the value of the person that I created on line 5. If person were immutable, which is not, then p would still not be having a name, so would be null. But in this case, I've updated the actual object. They're both looking at the very same object. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about this in a second, so don't worry too much about it for now. But this is what I mean with mutability. The actual original object has changed. And as you can see, it prints Maaike. So it modified the original object. So to sum up, primitives are just basic values, whereas objects are a collection of properties and methods. This will be nuanced a bit later, but it's good enough for understanding it right now. Let's have a closer look at what objects can contain.